The clutter of my office was a familiar chaos, a sanctuary of thoughts and sounds that had always brought me solace. Stacks of books teetered precariously on the edge of my desk, their pages dog-eared and filled with my scribbled annotations. Old vinyl records lined the walls, each one a testament to my lifelong obsession with music and its hidden narratives. Yet, amidst this familiar chaos, a new melody had emerged, weaving itself into the fabric of my daily life. It echoed in my mind like a haunting whisper, pulling me deeper into its mysterious embrace. I leaned back in my creaky chair, a cup of cold coffee forgotten beside me, as I scrolled through the myriad reports flooding in from around the globe. People were experiencing it everywhere, a melody that seemed to resonate with something deep within them. It was as if the world was being summoned to listen, to connect. I couldn't shake the thought that this was more than mere coincidence. I grabbed my notebook, the pages already filled with my musings, and began to jot down connections, tracing the melody's origins to an ancient civilization I had long studied. "Ethan, you're not seriously believing this, are you?" My colleague Sarah chimed in, breaking my concentration. She leaned against the doorframe, her arms crossed, skepticism etched across her face. "It's not just a whim, Sarah. There's something significant here. Look at the patterns." I replied, gesturing animatedly to the screen. "These reports align with ancient texts about harmonics and frequencies. This melody could be a key to understanding a lost culture. Or it could just be a viral marketing stunt. You know how people are, always looking for a story," she countered, rolling her eyes. "Maybe," I conceded, "but doesn't it fascinate you? What if it's a message from the past?" With a sigh, she retreated, leaving me to my thoughts. The melody played on repeat in my head, its notes dancing like shadows, urging me to dig deeper. I delved into the digital archives, flipping through articles and ancient manuscripts, each page a gateway to a world that felt just out of reach. Meanwhile, across town, Clara Voss received an anonymous tip about the melody. Known for her sharp wit and unyielding skepticism, she was no stranger to oddities. Yet, this felt different. Sitting in her dimly lit office, she scrolled through the same reports I had seen, her brow furrowing as she read the people's experiences. "Another one," she muttered, shaking her head in disbelief. "What is it with people and their fantasies?" But even as she dismissed it, a flutter of curiosity sparked within her. "Hey Clara, you see this?" Her colleague Mark called from his desk, waving a printout. "There's a whole forum dedicated to this melody. People are going nuts over it." Clara sighed, torn between her instinct to debunk the story and the inexplicable pull she felt toward it. "I'll take a look, but I'm not going to get swept up in some internet frenzy," she replied, her voice edged with determination. Inside, however, she felt a stirring, a whisper that perhaps there was more to this than met the eye. In the dim glow of his computer screen, Jake Lynn, a reclusive hacker, stumbled upon the melody while browsing through various online forums. The notes resonated with him, a digital echo that transcended the mundane. Intrigued, he began to dig deeper, hacking into a global music database, searching for any trace of the melody's origins. "This is odd," he murmured, his fingers flying over the keyboard. "These frequency patterns are unusual, almost like they're aligned with specific geographic locations." He leaned back, tapping his chin thoughtfully. What if this melody is more than just a sound? What if it's a signal? The thrill of discovery coursed through him. This melody was like a puzzle, and he was determined to piece it together, even if it meant venturing into the unknown. As the melody wove its way through our lives, I couldn't shake the feeling that something monumental was brewing beneath the surface, a convergence of paths, a meeting of minds destined to unravel the secrets hidden within those haunting notes. My heart raced with anticipation, unaware of the journey that lay ahead, one that would not only test our beliefs but also bind us together in ways we could never have imagined. The air was thick with anticipation as I drove through the winding roads of the Appalachian Mountains. The melody had led me here, a remote village steeped in mystery and tradition. As I approached, I could see a gathering of locals around an ancient stone structure, their faces illuminated by the fading sunlight. I parked my car hastily, excitement bubbling within me, and stepped out, the cool evening breeze brushing against my skin. "Ethan, hail." I called out, hoping to catch someone's attention. My heart raced as I navigated through the crowd, the haunting melody growing louder with each step. It was as if the stones themselves were alive, resonating with a frequency that echoed in my bones. I spotted an elderly man with a weathered face, his eyes reflecting years of wisdom. "Ah, the musicologist," he said, a smile breaking across his face. "You've come to hear the song, haven't you?" I nodded, my voice barely above a whisper. "What is it? Where does it come from?" He gestured toward the stones. "These stones have been here for centuries, long before we were. The melody, it has a history. It speaks to those who listen closely." As I focused on the stones, I could feel the vibration coursing through me, a connection forming between the past and present. "It's incredible," I murmured, entranced. "What do you know about it?" The old man leaned in closer, his voice low. "They say the melody can awaken something deep within, something ancient. But it's not just music, it's a call. Some say it can reveal secrets, while others fear it could lead to madness." My mind raced with possibilities. I took out my notebook, jotting down every word. "Have you experienced anything unusual since it began?" He nodded gravely. "People have been drawn here from far and wide. Some hear it in their dreams, others come and never leave. It's as if it knows who to call." "Have you felt it?" I pressed, urgency tinging my words. "I have," he admitted, a distant look in his eyes. "But be careful, young man. Not all secrets are meant to be uncovered." Just then, a burst of laughter interrupted our conversation. I turned to see a group of teenagers, their carefree demeanor a stark contrast to the weight of the old man's words. They danced and clapped, caught in the rhythm of the melody, their joy infectious. I couldn't help but smile, momentarily forgetting the ominous implications surrounding the music. The night deepened, and the villagers began to chant, their voices harmonizing with the melody. I stood at the edge of the gathering, mesmerized. It felt as if I was witnessing something sacred, a ritual that transcended time. Suddenly, a figure caught my eye, a woman moving elegantly through the crowd. Clara Voss. I recognized her from her articles, her sharp wit and skepticism always evident in her writing. "Ethan," she called out, her tone laced with disbelief. "You're really here?" "Clara." "I didn't expect to see you," I replied, the tension between us palpable. "What brings you to this remote village?" "I'm here to find the truth," she stated, crossing her arms. "And I doubt it's as romantic as you've made it out to be." I frowned. "You think this is a publicity stunt?" Her eyes narrowed. "I think people are easily manipulated. This melody, it's too convenient. You can't just trust it because it sounds beautiful." I felt my frustration bubbling. "And you can't dismiss it just because it challenges your skepticism. There's something real here, Clara. Something powerful." She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "And what if it's not? What if it's a trap? You're playing with forces you don't understand." "Maybe," I conceded, "but isn't that the point? To understand it? To uncover what lies beneath the surface." Clara hesitated, considering my words. The melody swelled around us, a haunting reminder of the mystery we were both drawn to. "I'll admit, there's something compelling about it," she finally said, her defenses slightly lowering. "But I won't let it cloud my judgment." I nodded, appreciating her tenacity. "I wouldn't expect anything less from you." As the night wore on, I realized that Clara and I were two sides of the same coin, her skepticism balancing my curiosity. But as the villagers continued to chant and dance, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were on the verge of unearthing something monumental, something that could change everything we thought we knew. The melody had brought us together, but it was only the beginning of our journey into the unknown. As I stood in the mouth of the cave, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and minerals, I felt an electric charge in the atmosphere. Clara was beside me, her camera slung around her neck, her eyes scanning the dark recesses of the cavern. I could sense her skepticism mingling with the excitement of discovery. "Are you sure this is the right place?" she asked, her voice echoing slightly in the cavernous space. "It has to be," I replied, glancing at the tattered map I had painstakingly researched. "These symbols," I said, pointing to the carvings on the cave walls, "they match the ones we found in the village. They're ancient notes, perhaps even musical scales." Clara stepped closer, squinting at the faint etchings. "Musical scales? You really think they could be connected to the melody?" I nodded, feeling a swell of conviction. "I think they are. The melody resonates with frequencies that could very well align with these symbols. It's like they're a map, guiding us to something greater." "Or leading us into a trap," Clara countered, crossing her arms. We could be walking into the hands of that organization you're so worried about. Maybe, I admitted, the weight of her words settling in. But we won't know unless we investigate. As we ventured deeper into the cave, the sound of dripping water filled the silence, and I could almost hear the echo of the melody in my mind. It was as if the cave itself was alive with the whispers of the past. Clara shone her flashlight on the walls, revealing more symbols, curved lines, spirals, and what looked like ancient instruments. "Look at this," she said, pointing excitedly to a larger engraving that resembled a harp. "What do you make of it?" I stepped closer, tracing the outline with my fingers. It's a representation of sound. This entire place is a sonic landscape, a temple of music. Suddenly, my phone buzzed in my pocket, the sound jarring against the stillness of the cave. I pulled it out, glancing at the screen. It was a message from Jake, our hacker friend. "I've uncovered more about the organization. They're planning something big, and it involves the melody. Meet me at the old library in town." "This is getting serious," Clara said, her brows furrowing. "What are we going to do?" "We finish here first," I said firmly. "We need to document what we find. If Jake is right, time is of the essence." As we continued to explore, I felt the air shift around us. The cave seemed to hum with energy, and I could feel the melody resonating through the rock. "Do you hear that?" I asked abruptly, stopping in my tracks. Clara paused, tilting her head. "Hear what?" "The melody. It's changing. It's almost as if the cave is responding to our presence." She looked at me, her skepticism wavering. "You really believe that?" "I do," I said, my heart racing. "Music has power, Clara. It can influence emotions, thoughts, even actions. If these symbols are tied to the melody, we could be standing at the threshold of something monumental." "Or catastrophic," Clara muttered, but I could see the intrigue in her eyes. As we moved forward, we stumbled upon a deeper chamber, the walls shimmering with a strange luminescence. In the center lay a stone altar, carved with the same symbols we had seen earlier. I felt a magnetic pull towards it, as if the melody was beckoning me closer. "Ethan, be careful," Clara warned, but I couldn't help myself. I stepped up to the altar, placing my hands on its cool surface. The moment I did, a wave of sound washed over me, enveloping me in a cascade of notes that resonated deep within my soul. "What is happening?" Clara's voice was laced with panic as she stepped back. "I can feel it," I replied, my eyes closed. "It's like the melody is alive, intertwining with the very essence of this place." Suddenly, I felt Clara's hand on my shoulder, grounding me. "Ethan, we need to go. If the organization is tracking this, they'll find us. We can't risk it." Reluctantly, I stepped back, the resonance fading as I pulled away from the altar. "You're right. We need that information from Jake. Let's get out of here." As we made our way back through the cave, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. The shadows danced around us, and I felt a shiver run down my spine. "We should hurry," I said, urgency creeping into my voice. Just as we reached the exit, I heard a noise, a low growl that echoed through the cavern. Clara froze, her eyes wide. What was that? "Run!" I shouted, adrenaline surging through me. We dashed toward the entrance, the darkness closing in behind us. As we burst into the daylight, I glanced back, my heart racing, knowing that whatever lay ahead would test everything we believed. As we stepped into the hidden temple in the Yucatan, I felt a shiver run down my spine. The air was thick with an ancient energy, the kind that makes your heart race and your skin tingle. Ethan led the way, his eyes wide with awe, while Clara walked beside me, her skepticism momentarily suspended by the sheer magnitude of our surroundings. The walls were adorned with intricate carvings that seemed to dance in the flickering torchlight, whispering secrets of a civilization long gone. "Can you believe this place?" Ethan murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's incredible," I replied, feeling the weight of history pressing down on us. "But why does it feel so alive?" Clara scoffed, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. "Alive? Or just dusty and abandoned? I mean, look at this place. It's a glorified ruin." "Maybe," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "But it feels like we're on the brink of something monumental. Like we're about to uncover the truth behind the melody." As we ventured deeper into the temple, we stumbled upon a vast chamber. The walls were lined with artifacts, ceramic bowls, stone tablets, and strange instruments that emitted soft, haunting notes when touched. In the center, a massive stone altar stood, engraved with symbols that resonated with the melody we had been chasing. "Look at this," Ethan said, kneeling beside the altar. "These markings, they're similar to the ones we found in New Mexico. It has to be connected." Clara leaned in, her skepticism waning as she studied the symbols. "What do you think it means?" Ethan's eyes sparkled with excitement. "I think this civilization used the melody to unify their society. They believed it could amplify their strength, control their emotions, perhaps even keep them in line." "Control," Clara repeated, her voice laced with concern. "That doesn't sound good. What if it's not just about unity? What if they used it as a weapon?" "Let's not jump to conclusions," I interjected, anxious to keep the peace. "We need more information." As if the temple had heard my plea, Clara's gaze fell upon a scroll resting on the altar. Carefully, she unrolled it, revealing a series of illustrations and text. "This looks like a historical document," she said, her voice trembling with anticipation. "It talks about the melody." Ethan leaned closer, his expression shifting from excitement to dread. "What does it say?" Clara's eyes widened as she read aloud. "The melody holds the power to induce harmony among the people. However, it warns that overexposure can lead to mental collapse, causing those who hear it too often to lose their sense of self." "What?" I exclaimed, the weight of her words settling heavily in the air. "That means we could be dealing with something far more dangerous than we thought," Clara finished, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan's brow furrowed in contemplation. "We need to consider our next steps carefully. If the organization is aware of this potential, they might weaponize it." "Weaponize it?" Clara echoed, her tone sharp. "And you're suggesting we should just let them continue? What if we could use it against them?" "Clara, you can't be serious," I replied, incredulous. "We have no idea what that could do to us. We might end up causing more harm than good." "Sometimes you have to fight fire with fire," Clara shot back, her eyes blazing with determination. "This isn't just about us anymore. It's about everyone who could be at risk." Ethan stepped between us, raising his hands in a gesture of peace. "Look, I understand both sides. But we need to think this through. We're on the brink of uncovering something monumental, but we can't lose sight of our morals in the process." The tension in the air was palpable. Clara's frustration was evident as she glared at Ethan, her jaw clenched tight. "You're too idealistic, Ethan. This is a fight for survival. We can't afford to be naive." "Naive?" Ethan shot back, his voice rising. "I'm trying to ensure we don't become monsters in the process." I stood there, caught in the crossfire of their argument. Each word felt like a dagger, tearing at the bonds we had formed. I wanted to scream, to tell them to stop, to remember who we were and why we had come together in the first place. But the weight of the melody and the secrets it held loomed over us, threatening to tear us apart. "Listen," I finally said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. "We need to focus on the task at hand. We can't let our differences drive us apart, not now. We're stronger together." Clara's expression softened slightly, but her resolve remained. "Fine. But we need to be prepared for whatever comes next. If we're going to confront the organization, we have to be ready to fight fire with fire." Ethan nodded slowly, though uncertainty flickered in his eyes. "Then let's gather everything we can from this place. We need to understand the full extent of what we're dealing with before we make any rash decisions." As we turned back to the artifacts, the tension remained thick, a fragile thread weaving between us. I couldn't shake the feeling that the melody, with all its power and allure, was about to change everything: our lives, our beliefs, and the very world we inhabited. The deeper we delved, the more I wondered if we could ever emerge unscathed. As we crept through the dimly lit corridors of the organization's headquarters, my heart raced with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. Jake, with his usual quiet confidence, led the way, his fingers deftly navigating the security systems, bypassing alarms and cameras as if they were mere obstacles in a video game. Clara and I followed closely, our breaths shallow, every sound amplified in the tense silence. "Are you sure this is the right place?" I whispered to Jake, my voice barely above a murmur. I could see the determination etched on his face, illuminated by the faint glow of his handheld device. "Trust me, Ethan. This is where they're amplifying the melody. We need to expose them, he replied, his tone steady. I nodded, trying to quell the doubt creeping into my mind. I had never imagined we'd be infiltrating a facility like this, but the stakes had never been higher. We reached a large steel door, heavily reinforced. Jake knelt before it, fingers flying over the device as he hacked into the lock. Just a sec, he muttered, beads of sweat forming on his brow. I glanced at Clara, who was clutching her phone, ready to document everything we found. Are you ready for this? I asked her, trying to gauge her nerves. She shot me a sideways glance, her expression a mixture of excitement and trepidation. I've faced worse, she said, her voice firm despite the uncertainty in her eyes. Let's just get the proof we need. With a soft beep, the door clicked open, and Jake pushed it ajar, revealing a cavernous lab filled with strange machinery and a hauntingly beautiful melody echoing through the air. I felt it resonate deep within my chest, a sound that both captivated and unnerved me. Stay sharp, Jake warned as we stepped inside. The sight before us was chilling. Rows of individuals strapped to chairs, their eyes vacant, as the melody flowed through speakers strategically placed around the room. I could see monitors displaying brain activity, the patterns pulsing in time with the haunting tune. This is worse than I imagined, Clara breathed, her voice barely above a whisper as she began recording. They're using the melody to manipulate memories. I felt a knot form in my stomach. This isn't just control, it's destruction. They're erasing who these people are, I said, anger rising within me. We have to shut this down. Jake nodded, his expression darkening with resolve. Let's find the main control room. We can cut off the sound and free them. As we moved deeper into the lab, the melody wrapped around us, seductive and insidious. My mind raced with questions. How could something so beautiful be twisted into a tool of oppression? I thought of the ancient civilization we had studied, how they had used the melody to unite their people. But here, it was being weaponized. Suddenly, a loud commotion erupted behind us. I turned to see a group of men in dark uniforms storming into the lab. We've been made. I shouted, adrenaline surging through me. Run. Jake yelled, and we took off down a side corridor, heartbeats pounding in sync with the melody that seemed to chase us. Clara's phone flickered, capturing every frantic moment. Just as we thought we might escape, we rounded a corner and came face to face with an imposing figure, Victor Kane, the leader of the organization. He stood there, a charismatic smile playing on his lips, exuding an unsettling calm. You've made quite an entrance, he said, his voice smooth as silk. But you've come at a terrible time. What are you doing to these people, Kane? Clara demanded, her voice fierce. This isn't peace, it's tyranny. He chuckled softly, a sound that sent chills down my spine. Tyranny? No, my dear Clara. This is evolution. The melody is the key to reshaping society, to ushering in an era of peace and unity. Who wouldn't want that? By erasing their identities? I shot back, stepping forward. You're playing God with their minds. Victor's expression shifted, a flicker of annoyance crossing his face. You don't understand the bigger picture. With the right frequency, we can eliminate conflict, erase hatred. Imagine a world where everyone is in harmony. I took a step back, the weight of his words sinking in. He truly believed in his twisted vision. But I couldn't afford to let fear take over. I had to think clearly. You're wrong. Harmony can't come from control. It has to come from choice, I stated firmly, feeling Clara's gaze on me, urging me to stand my ground. Victor leaned closer, his eyes gleaming with an unsettling intensity. But you see, choice is what has brought humanity to the brink of chaos. I can save them all. I can save you. The melody pulsed around us, thrumming with a sense of urgency, as if it too were aware of the impending confrontation. I could feel the tension in the air, a storm brewing, and I knew we had to act quickly. As I stood there, my heart racing, the tension in the air felt almost palpable. Ethan, Clara, and I were gathered in the dimly lit lab, facing Victor Kane, the man who had orchestrated this twisted symphony of manipulation and control. His presence was magnetic, a sharp contrast to the chaos surrounding us. You don't understand, he said, his voice smooth yet laced with desperation. This melody is the key to a new world order. It's not about control, it's about unity. Unity. Clara shot back, her voice fierce. You mean subjugation. You're using people as pawns in your sick game. Victor smirked, unfazed by her accusation. You're too short-sighted, Clara. The world is fractured. This melody can heal it. I felt a surge of anger. At what cost, Victor? You're turning people into mindless drones. He shrugged, a self-assured grin plastered on his face. It's evolution. They'll thank me later. I exchanged glances with Clara and Jake, the urgency in the air thickening. We needed to act fast. That's when Clara stepped forward, her eyes narrowing. I've been working on something too. She reached into her bag and pulled out her device, fingers dancing over the screen. A counter-frequency. It'll disrupt the melody's hold. Victor's expression shifted from amusement to concern. You think you can stop it? You have no idea what you're dealing with. Maybe not, I said, taking a deep breath, but we have to try. Clara pressed a button, and the lab filled with a new sound, a harmonious counterpoint to Victor's melody. The air vibrated with a different energy, disrupting the oppressive atmosphere that had been suffocating us. The captured individuals around us, their faces blank and hollow, began to stir. No! Victor shouted, his voice rising in panic. He lunged towards Clara, but she held her ground, her hand steady on the device. It's too late for you, Victor. You've underestimated us. The resonance of Clara's counter-frequency grew louder, reverberating through the facility. I could see the confusion in the eyes of the people we'd come to save. Slowly, their expressions began to shift from blankness to recognition, as if they were waking from a deep sleep. Fight it! I shouted, urging them on. You're stronger than this. Suddenly, the ground shook beneath us, a deafening roar filling the space as the facility began to collapse. The walls, once a fortress of control, now crumbled under the weight of the resonance we had unleashed. Victor staggered back, his confidence evaporating as he realized his plan was unraveling. You think you can escape this? He sneered, attempting to refocus the melody, trying to regain control. You'll never understand its true potential. Or maybe you'll never understand what it means to use it for good, Jake retorted, stepping forward with resolute determination. In a last-ditch effort, Victor cranked up the melody, but Clara's counter-frequency overwhelmed him. The sound waves clashed violently, creating a cacophony that sent Victor sprawling to the ground. The very essence of his power was being stripped away. As the facility continued to shake, a wave of relief washed over me. Let's go! I shouted, grabbing Clara's arm as we began to make our escape. Together, we dashed through the crumbling lab, pulling the disoriented individuals along with us. The melody that had once entranced them now felt like a distant echo, fading into the chaos behind us. Finally, we burst through the exit, tumbling onto the grass outside as the building behind us imploded in a cloud of dust and debris. We staggered to our feet, breathless yet triumphant. Clara looked at me, her eyes shining with a mix of disbelief and exhilaration. We did it. We actually did it. Jake, still catching his breath, nodded in agreement. But it's not over. We have to make sure this doesn't happen again. As the dust settled, we realized the enormity of our victory. We had not only thwarted a dangerous plot, but had also uncovered a deeper truth about the melody. It wasn't merely a tool for control, it was a reminder of the power of music, a force that could unite or divide. We need to protect it, I said, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on my shoulders. The world needs to know its true purpose. Clara nodded, her expression shifting to one of determination. We'll make sure it's used for unity, not manipulation. As we stood together, the sun began to rise, casting a warm glow over our victory. The melody, once a haunting echo of control, now resonated with hope, a universal language that held the potential for both connection and understanding. The journey had changed us, and together, we would guard its secrets, ensuring that it would never again be used as a weapon.